welcome to this week's review of The Golden Compass, starring Nicole Kidman.
These are the chiefs of the Egyptian families. You're under our protection.
If I was on the kind of scout that I reckon you're on, I'd hire myself an armored bear.
I will serve you in your campaign until you have a victory.
Just like Titanic spawned wannabe epic love stories like Pearl Harbor, which failed miserably, The Lord of the Rings has also inspired studios to create such films like The Chronicles of Narnia and now The Golden Compass. I knew having talking animals in a movie would be either hit or miss. I saw in the trailer they had polar bears, birds, and rodents talking, and I saw this as a possible red flag for this movie. And I think having animals do this in a film is pretty risky. Just like when you first saw Yoda grab for his lightsaber in Episode 2, and the first thing you're thinking was, either this is going to really suck, or it's going to be really cool. And thankfully, that scene was actually pretty sweet. Unfortunately, I can't say the same thing for The Golden Compass. This movie just never seems to find its mark. And I'm not just talking about the talking animals part. That's actually not the main problem with this movie. And if I were to sum this up, this movie is more like Episode 1, and The Lord of the Rings is like Empire Strikes Back. New Line Cinema pretty much put all their eggs in one basket for this movie. And since it's budgeted at around $150 million for this one film, it's going to be interesting to see if this will do well. Because it has to for the studio's sake. The entire budget for the Lord of the Rings trilogy was $281 million. And this single movie was more than half of that. And I must be honest, and say for a film with a budget this big, the CG effects in this movie were not nearly what I'd anticipated. And after seeing the quality of the Transformers in the trailer for this movie, I really felt that if nothing else, this film would be worth seeing at the theaters just for the visuals, and that wasn't the case. Sure, they were decent, but nothing jaw-dropping. Most of you know, this was an adaptation of Philip Pullman's children's book, Dark Materials, which is supposed to be darker in nature than the Chronicles of Narnia, which for me was a good thing. I like movies that have an ominous presence to them, but this movie really wasn't that dark at all. It was like this movie was a mixture between the Harry Potter series and the Chronicles of Narnia. The first real problem with this film was the fact that the characters weren't developed very well. In some movies you feel very close to the main characters, and that was not the case for this movie. And one of the main reasons for this was the fact that the scope of the film was so large, so they didn't have the time to develop all the characters because they're way too busy introducing the rest of the cast. Now the casting is easily the strongest part for this film, starting with Nicole Kidman and Daniel Craig. Now Daniel Craig is in this movie for all of 10 to 15 minutes tops, and if he wasn't one of the top billed actors, you wouldn't even think he was a main character in this movie. He has very little screen time. And they also managed to get two main actors from the Lord of the Rings trilogy in this movie as well. Christopher Lee and the voice of Gandalf for the polar bear, Ian McKellen. And I'm sure they wanted to draw all they could from the Lord of the Rings. But my personal favorite in this film was the casting of Sam Elliott. He is the epitome of a cowboy, and he's usually one of the stronger actors in any film he's in. He has an excellent screen presence. And the storyline is one of the biggest problems of this film. It's all over the place. You're getting introduced to dozens of characters, and you're also getting hints of what the story is about, but nothing too specific. So it feels like you're closing your eyes and just following someone's voice half the time. They're trying to tell you enough to intrigue you, but at the same time, not enough so you can feel where the overall story is going. And the dialogue was also pretty weak. In several scenes in this movie, I knew there were parts of this film that were making its signature important moments, and it just fell very flat. Things just didn't click in this movie like some of the others. Something was just off. Now we come to the biggest single problem with this movie, bar none. Unlike other great trilogies, Star Wars, The Godfather, Indiana Jones, in which the first movie could stand on its own just fine, this one is literally a 2-hour intro into the next film, nothing more. And sure, there's a polar bear battle and a fairly anticlimactic final battle very near the end of the Golden Compass, but this movie accomplishes nothing but to introduce the characters and leave infinite questions to be answered while answering none. With The Lord of the Rings, the final goal was always known. We always knew that this was the ring needs to be destroyed, and the ring can only be destroyed here and we have to destroy it. This movie tells you nothing. You have no idea what's really going on and where the story is ultimately taking you. The ending was not an ending at all. It was a total cliffhanger. Imagine if in Star Wars, the movie ends while they're on their way to the Death Star. It's pretty lame. Nothing is really wrapped up, and you have to wait until next year at the earliest to see if anything crystallizes as far as the story goes. And I'm sure the fans of the TV show Lost know exactly what I'm talking about. Overall, I would say the younger audiences should enjoy this movie to some extent, but I don't think this film will have the staying power needed to make a big splash. And I think the word of mouth will be lukewarm at best, and this film could have a tough time even coming close to the box office totals of The Rings or Narnia. And The Chronicles of Narnia posted a fresh 76% on Rotten Tomatoes, but The Golden Compass is sitting on a rotten 43%, and it was as low as 36%. Not good. I really thought that I would have at least endorsed this movie for the visuals, if nothing else. I thought this was going to be a bigger-than-life film that needed to be seen on the big screen, but that's not the case. Seeing this on your TV from a DVD will be sufficient for a decent amount of people that see this movie. And I really can't say that this film is one you need to rush out and see. And I was fairly disappointed with this movie when I left the theater. From overall rating, I give The Golden Compass 2 stars.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
Post your comments below on what you thought of this movie. If you'd like to rate and review a movie, you can do so at www.yourmovieratings.com. At this site, you can upload a video review or even a text review of any movie ever made. If you subscribe to my channel, you'll be notified immediately when my latest movie review is uploaded. Also, if you'd like to see some of the latest info regarding my channel, then check out my website at MrBlacksReviews.com. And if you made a cool video, or you want to share your YouTube channel with other members, then post them in the YouTube section. These forums are dedicated to everything from new movie releases to your very own YouTube channel. And don't forget, I'll be giving away DVDs at the forums, including the following titles: Transformers, Harry Potter, The Simpsons, Hot Fuzz, and 4 DVDs of the movie 300. So join the forums for a chance to win any one of these DVDs. And finally, if you want to see my list of upcoming movie reviews, then just go to my forums and click on the calendar. This has all the movies that I'll be reviewing in the future. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you again next week.